welcome to the Silvers Connection. I am Ernie Silvers, your host. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. Drop me a line at mba@csusb.edu. I'd love to hear comments, questions, and concerns about the show. Watch us on our YouTube channel at MBA CSUSB, the MBA CSUSB. Watch us on the YouTube channel. Today, my guest is Roger Woolsey. Roger is the Executive Director of the Cal State Career Center. Roger, welcome.
Thank you, Ernie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you being here. Now, you know, if you watch Silvers Connection, we're all about making you the best version of you possibly can. Roger deals with careers, internships, helping people find that ideal career. I thought it would be awesome to have Roger come on and tell us. Roger's new to the campus. In fact, for those of you who have been with us through the COVID shows, Roger says that he was hired right at the onset of the COVID outbreak and has never actually been in his campus office. I think that's something to tag up on the wall. Roger, is that true?
It is true. I've been to a campus. I've been to Cal State San Bernardino, but it was very empty. It didn't appear like a college campus. There was no energy, but I still have not seen the office.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you've met your staff virtually, so they're all awesome people.
Yeah. No high fives, no handshakes, none of that stuff.
Well, we can't do that anymore anyway. That's been overruled. Roger, help us understand, how did you get to Cal State? You've got a pretty incredible career path. How did you get here to Cal State?
Well, we'll do the 30,000 foot level answer to that. So I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. So I went to San Diego State. So I'm a CSU grad myself. After I left San Diego State, I went to Emerson College, where I pursued my master's. And then I went to Wayne State University to pursue my PhD. My whole career trajectory was always marketing, advertising, public relations. So integrated marketing communications, IMC. Worked in the telecommunications industry. I have worked in the fashion industry early in my career. Went into management consulting in the mid 1990s. I've been an entrepreneur, started Equifinality, which was an integrated marketing communications company in Boston, Massachusetts. I've taught for over 11 years at Boston College and some other schools in the Boston area, such as Emerson and Suffolk University and Northeastern University. A lot of name dropping here.
I know.
And then I pivoted. You know, I decided that I was, when I was a professor at BC, in the communications department, I had a line of students out my door, Ernie, waiting to talk to me about internships and jobs. And so I sat there thinking to myself, where's the career office? And with my background in business and teaching, I figured I would pivot. I became a career director. My first job, I've never worked in a career office before, mind you, no experience, but I took a directorship position, thankfully hired by a small liberal arts college in Waterville, Maine called Colby College. And I ran that office. They didn't tell me there was going to be a recession when they hired me, but I ran that office, rebuilt it, so to speak, with the team from 2008 to 2012. And then I was going to go back to the private sector, but then I was hearing from a search firm that Dartmouth College wants to talk to me about some of the work I did at Colby, brought me to Dartmouth, and I ran that office for 6.5 years. And then I left in 2019, September 6, 2019, to start a new venture called Aries Financial Literacy. But then somebody forgot to tell me there was going to be this pandemic. Nobody shared with me in their crystal ball, there's this thing called COVID that's going to be happening in March of that year.
Indeed.
And so after bootstrapping the company without doing much fundraising, I decided it's time to get back into the market and get some money coming in. And I saw that Cal State San Bernardino had a position open. I'm from California. I've lived on the East Coast for 25 years. What a great opportunity, right? To give back to a CSU that gave so much to me, the system, and to be in sunny California.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no snow, no shoveling snow here. So
or falling on ice.
Or falling on ice.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
Don't miss it.
Yeah. Roger, tell us about, you're new to the Campus Career Center here. I'm frankly excited that you're here. I'm looking forward to the things you're going to do. Tell us about some of the things that we can expect with you as the executive director.
Well, the big thing that you can expect is that we're gonna shake things up a little bit and really just go outside the box, right? We really want to design a career center that really capitalizes on human capital, uh, interactive, engaging programming, expansion of employment and internship opportunities, and looking at ways in which we do things and how we do our programming and how we do our advising differently. So I think some of the biggest changes that we're going to see is an office that's going to have a lot more presence on campus. We've worked on communication channels, making sure that we're much more integrated in how we communicate with students, what we do specifically. We want to make sure they understand it. Making sure that we're, in front of the students when they come in as first years, right? The freshmen. We want to make sure that they understand that we are here and we want to develop a program that specifically engages those students beginning the first day they set on campus, their foot on campus, all the way till they graduate. And so almost like an incubator, right? So they're ready to launch. And I can talk to you a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
But really just looking at the ways in which we could do things differently. Instead of doing workshops, for example, Ernie, why not just informal meetups? Because students go to workshops all the time. They're in classes all the time. They're fatigued, right? So we have to figure out ways in which we can engage the students in their spaces, but make sure we're doing it the right way, that they're energized to be there and that they're going to learn as much as they can.
I saw something today on LinkedIn, and all of us have a little love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, but I saw something where an institution changed up how it recruited. You talked about changing up the seminar into more like meetups. They turned their situations from that report seminar scenario to an open mic event, kind of a meetup, and folks came out and participated at high levels, and the energy just soared in the room, and it became something completely different, fascinating, entertaining, engaging, and so forth. So I think we all have to be a little open to how's it going to be different to get people in here, right? So
yeah, we have to rethink it. Absolutely.
So we're talking COVID, and you're here at the beginning. Well, yeah, you were here for the beginning of COVID, and hopefully you're here. I hope the end of COVID is very soon. I am a little exhausted with COVID. Notice there's no masks on this show. Let's talk about the post-COVID job market. Get your crystal ball out. What do you use?
Yeah, right.
And I mean, because we talk about this all the time. What's going to happen? Nobody knows, but you're in charge of shaping careers, or at least, lending a hand. What do you think we should be doing?
First and foremost, I think the thing that we should be doing in the career office space and career education is looking at technology to really help employers recruit college students, right? I think the recruiting spectrum of the career education space is going to change. There are a lot of employers out there, Ernie, that are in, say, finance, for example, management consulting, engineering, that spend millions of dollars a year visiting college campuses to do information sessions about what it is that they do, as well as interviewing the candidates for positions. And that's not even including their onboarding fees or costs, right, that they have to also pay for. I think what employers have found out this year is that they now can recruit using other technologies, Zoom, for example, and other technologies, and they still are getting the quality of candidates. What we're also going to see is remote work. I think it's here to stay. I really do believe that. I think if you look at data, and I'm sure the MBA faculty look at data all the time, we're seeing across the board, right, that remote work is working. It is. People are working longer hours and productivity is up or down. I bet you anything it is up. And that's what the research is indicating. Productivity is up. Onboarding is an issue online because you don't really get to experience the culture, but maybe we have to rethink that a little bit. But if remote work is here, right, if it's here to stay, and I believe it's going to, yeah, then you're allowing students from Cal State San Bernardino to stay, right, in either Riverside County or San Bernardino County and work for an employer anywhere else in the country or somewhere across the globe and make good salaries. I think it's a great opportunity. And we have to do a much better job in making sure that we communicate with those employers about the talent that we have and give them an opportunity to engage our students. Industries are changing the way we do things. Like, for example, you go get a degree in computer science, learning how to code, you go work for Google, right? Well, now Google says, hey, listen, you can go to a camp, learn how to code. You don't need a college degree right now. So I think things are changing. We have to think about in career services, how do we change with the changing job market? How do we change with the way that they're looking at skills and competency development? Is it always in the classroom? Or are there other complementary things that we need to do working, Ernie, with employers, and looking at ways in which we can facilitate the skills and development. Maybe not always an internship, maybe there's other ways of doing it. But I think the pandemic has showed us that we have to rethink how we do things, from recruiting to how we do our jobs, and to how we see, how we're working within a certain culture. All of those things are really important in the fabric of an organization.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that we, the Career Center, we, the MBA office, need to develop or extend our relationships with business entities within the Inland Empire to understand, what do you want? What do you need? I think all of us are kind of going, oh my God, I don't know. So we learn together maybe, but we have to, I had this discussion today. We, as Cal State San Bernardino, we produce a product. It's called Graduate, be it undergrad or be it grad, we produce a product. And like any good business, we need to go to our customer, the job market, and ask, how we doing? What do you want? How do you want this product to be? What do you want it to know? And we need to be able to develop how we teach students, what we teach students, so that it satisfies our customer. So what skills do you imagine, other than obviously the technology, what other skills do you see being vital for post-COVID?
Communication is going to be extremely important. Our ability to communicate effectively because of remote work is going to be crucial. We always would say that knowledge is power. Communication is power. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't communicate that knowledge effectively to your teams or during meetings, then obviously there's going to be a breakdown within the system. And if we're working remote, we're going to be relying on what we're doing now, right, talking through some sort of a modality. So we have to think about that. Number two, I do believe that you're still going to see the importance of understanding interpersonal skills. I think that's always going to be there, and how to develop relationships in this new world of work and how we do that. We're also looking at ways in which, how do we generate, how do we generate and look at marketing now? What's that marketing skills look like? Was it digital marketing? Was this, that, and the other thing? How are we thinking about that, moving forward? What does marketing skill sets look like nowadays? And so there's certain things are going to be the same as far as the core competencies are concerned, but I think what's going to change is how do we use them, right? And how do we adapt? It's going to be all about adaptability.
I agree. And communications. Now you're a comms guy, you're a communications major. We were talking about that before we started. How, in your opinion, sir, what is the best way for students, or anybody for that matter, to increase their ability or improve their ability to communicate?
Practice. Just talk to people. Communication is not just verbal communication, right? Communication is listening. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing, you're sort of innate. You're born to hear, or you're born with a hearing impediment. Listening is engaging. It's interactive, right? And the first thing about communication is making sure that you're listening to the individuals that you're communicating with. It's something that is extremely important, but we don't emphasize it enough. Number two, it's our written communication. Somebody, my mentor years ago, was a guy in Boston, and he was the lead consultant for 3 Mile Island disaster. And he told me it's very simple to be successful in business. You have to be a good communicator. You have to write well, you have to speak well, you have to read well. Number two, you have to be organized. Keep your day organized. Get up in the morning, figure out what is your to-do list, and conquer it, because there's no greater satisfaction at the end of a workday than your accomplishments. And you can walk away from your desk knowing that you did it, right? That was number two. He also said mathematics. He said basic math is the key. You don't have to worry about all these other probability type mathematics stuff. He said basics, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Think about the basics in mathematics, because you're going to use it. You're going to use it every day. And so when I think of communication, all of that and all those other cores that are competencies that I brought up are going to be important. But also communications about, again, how do we get the message out there, from an MBA standpoint, even undergraduate, if you're going to go into communication, go work in advertising, public relations. It's how do you present your communication using technologies? Mm-hmm. It's how to find and strategize who your market is going to be and what's the effective way to reach that target market in an era today where people have maybe 3, 4, 5 different identities, and it's making marketing a lot more segmented, or is it more aggregated? You know, it depends upon. We used to just start out with a narrative and say, "Here, here's Roger Woolsey. Here's our target market." It's not the same anymore because Roger has different identities. So I think that communication is important, but at the same time, we have to understand the strategy behind communication. That's also going to be important.
Well, the disciplines sound simple. The strategy part
Yep.
is where
Yep.
it's complicated, because the
Yep.
listening, writing, speaking, organized, so forth, that's fairly simple. You just have to do it. There has to be a
Yep.
discipline and you have to do it. But the
Yep.
strategy, I guess, and understanding who you're talking, help me better understand. You talk about folks and you mentioned yourself having different identities. Expand on that one a little bit. How do people have different
Well,
identities?
we're at an era now where people may have different identities. For example, I may be Caucasian, but I'm also visually impaired. Being visually impaired, I'm disabled. So, and so therefore, I am visually impaired and I'm a white male. I was also adopted, so I'm an adoptee. So that may have some. I have different experiences with that. You could have a female who's Black, who's LGBTQIA, who was a war veteran, but who's also a Native American. Those are 4 very distinct identities. And so how do we begin to communicate effectively in a pluralistic society of today? And we have to be mindful of that, and we have to be very strategic about how we do that.
Interesting. That is interesting. Let's talk for just a second about career versus job. Career versus job. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. A lot of times career directors back in the day would think about first destination. It's that job. We've just got to get the student to the job. And I think a lot of the reason behind that, or to be frank, and I'm very frank, shoot from the hip, it's all about numbers, right? We just want to know how many students have gotten jobs so we can continue to fundraise and make our schools look good. Because at the end of the day, Ernie, it's about rankings, right? For a lot of us. Careers are different. Careers is meaningful. It's finding something. We use the word passion, and sometimes I think we overextend the concept of what passion really is. But really what it boils down to is where is your energy? I always think of energy. If you're in a major, or you're considering a major, and it's, say, biology versus, say, for example, philosophy, totally 2 distinct majors, but you find it that you're sort of going in that direction of philosophy, you're going to have a much better time with it because you enjoy it, right? A career is when you take advantage of internships. I always think that you should, when you do internships, don't just stick with one industry, unless that's the industry you really love. Think about how you can use those skill sets and competencies in other industries, because at the end of the day, it's really finding what gets you excited. A career has trajectory. If your career, for example, is going to be in finance, and you start out in IBD, investment banking, for example, or sales and trading, doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up. You might go after an MBA after that because you love finance, and then boom, now I'm going to go be a VC, right? A venture capitalist. Now I'm really going to start having some fun because I'm a strategic thinker and I like to help companies, and I want to, evaluate those companies and see if they're going to have strategically, are they going to grow, right? And maybe we'll invest in them. Or maybe go into private equity. Woo, that's exciting. But there are different roles within that career path, that career trajectory. And so you're not just going from one career to another career, one job just to another job. It's really thinking about how do we introduce careers to students, not just jobs.
Right.
And that's now going to be a cornerstone at Cal State San Bernardino. Is let's really think about and have discussions and narratives around the concept of career, not job.
How do you
Career
do that?
people do, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Sometimes jobs, actually, I'm sorry. Jobs oftentimes will scare people because it's just a job.
It's just
Is it long term, or is it short term? But a career sounds like it's, you're going to be in that for a while. And that's where we want to see students do.
I notice, I'll make a statement and get your feedback on it. I notice that many times students are only concerned about how much am I going to make? They're not overly concerned with what you just discussed, which is the career, the trajectory, what's the long game? What am I going to do? What do you tell students who are only focused on how much money I'm going to make?
Not to. At the end of
Not
the
to.
day, not, don't think about the money.
It's
Money
not
is
the
going to be
money.
there as long as you work for it, right? And it depends on what are your needs, needs versus wants, but we're not going to go there. I think when it comes down to money, you have to look at what do you value? Is money what you value, or is it family, health, your sense of spirituality? What is it that you value? And those 3 to 5 things that you value, maybe money's there. Maybe you're struggling and darn it, I'm going to college. I think Gallup said, and one of their research reports, or I think it was Gallup or Higher, it was Higher, right? Higher Education Research Institute said something like 80% of students go to college today because they want a better. They're going to college. They're finding colleges and universities because they want a good job, right? But is it really money? No. I think that money will come with experience in the very beginning. Get the experience, and the rest of it will fall in place. If you put a value on money, you might get burnt out. You might get burnt out real quick. I've seen a lot of young people go work for management consulting firms, go work in finance, for example. We both have stories about people who've worked in finance, and they're working 80-hour work weeks and they're making good money. A young student coming out of college will think, gosh, I'm going to get $80,000 working for a financial institution in New York City, but you're not going to be able to enjoy it. You got to look at the taxes of New York City, the state taxes. If you're working so long hours, you're going to be able to, and your rent, are you going to be able to enjoy that money? What is your disposable income after paying student loans?
Oh my
Think
goodness,
about it.
that's a topic I want to get to. We're going to put a bookmark in that one. I want to come back to that one, but
Yeah.
I always tell students, don't think about the money. If you're focused on money, it's never going to be enough.
No.
You're always going to be chasing it. You're never going to be satisfied. Money should be a result of your actions, your passion,
right.
your engagement, whatever you're doing, and you're just busting your fanny and you're having a great time. And money's coming too. Isn't that mysterious how that works? They pay me to do this. Oh my gosh, it's kind of like working at Cal State. They actually pay me to do this. Oh my God. So that's the good stuff. Back just for a second with your technology, I'm seeing lots of indications that students need to adjust how they think about technology in the workplace, because a lot of low-level jobs are being replaced by technology.
AI. Yeah.
And we ought not be afraid of it. We need to embrace it and engage it. It's not a matter of, is it coming? It's already here. But how do we prepare students to embrace the technology and just go with it, work with it?
We have to use it. We have to find ways in which we incorporate it in the academic setting, and not be afraid of it ourselves. Introduce it, have employers introduce it, have employers talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is not killing jobs. It's basically rebooting the way we work, right?
Yes.
A lot of people say this all the time. And when I first heard, AI and virtual reality, VR, they're going to kill jobs. Well, yeah, maybe some jobs will be replaced by technology, but other jobs will be created because of it or due to it, right? And so, but I think in order to embrace technology, we have to use the technology. So for example, a lot of the Gen Zs, millennials included, have used technology at a much greater have a much greater opportunity of using technology than my generation did, Gen X. And I'm right on the border between Gen X and baby boomer. We didn't have cell phones. I mean, the first computer I had was I think it was a Radio Shack 80, a Trash 80 with an amber screen.
Guilty.
But we had to learn, different languages. It was a lot different. Apple came out with the first, integrated type phone concept, and that destroyed BlackBerry almost, right? BlackBerry did get destroyed by that. So, but we've learned to embrace it because we use it. I mean, look at social media today. All the things that students are using. Think of the gaming that students do today. A lot of these students are using PS4s, PS5s, all these different consoles to play video games. They're embracing the technology more than we ever did.
Right.
And so, but if it's technology that we're using, Zoom, we're embracing Zoom right now. And there's other technology. So I think that this is a generation that has aptitude, Ernie, that they're going to learn it. But I think we do need to talk a little bit more about it and really show students how is it used in the workplace, because it's a lot different than when you're using in your own personal space.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it absolutely is. But you can't be afraid of it. You have to embrace it, because somebody still has to program it. Somebody has to organize it. Somebody has to manage the work around the technology.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
we have to be prepared to do that.
Learn certain software. I think students, MBA candidates in particular, learn Excel. Learn how to do, like if you're going into finance, for example, I bring it up all the time, learn how to do financial modeling on Excel without using your mouse, just using your keyboard, right? There are things that you can do with software and really, really get more experience in how to use, for example, Excel, PowerPoint. Learn, I mean, just those two pieces of software right there, really, really important pieces to learn. And I can't express it more than that. I mean, once you learn Excel, it's going to be a little bit easier to pick up Access and some of the other technologies that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You need those. Okay. Let's go back. You brought it up. I'm going to go in here to the swamp called student loans. Talk about student loans.
It's a disaster.
A situation in America called student loans. I can see you're starting to form negative opinions. Roger, help us out with that student loan things. A lot of our students are here with student loans. Talk to us about student loans.
Well, let me just say this loud and clear. If you are a student who has a loan or loans, sometimes you'll get a federal loan, but you have to get a gap loan to make ends meet. And so maybe you borrowed $12,000 to $18,000 on top of your federal loan. That has to be repaid. Or some of your students may have taken out a couple of private loans. And so what happens is that when you graduate, those banks, those lenders are going to start calling and say, hey, listen, you need to pay that back. Here's the key: consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. Remember Fight Club? We don't talk about Fight Club. We can talk about consolidation because we don't talk about it. You have to consolidate those loans to reduce those monthly payments, so that way you can put more money towards the loan if you want to, or have more disposable income for other expenses that you've accrued. Maybe it's a new car. Maybe you're looking to get a mortgage, for example. Maybe there are certain things that you need to get. So consolidating those loans is number one. Number two, understanding the loan or loans. What is that loan all about? Is it a 15, 30? What is it? What's your percent? What's your... The thing about student loans is pay attention to what your interest rate is. If you're paying 15% interest rate, that's awfully high. And so consolidation will probably help you to do that, or refinance that loan with another lender, right? It's not just consolidation, it's also refi. After your MBA program, if you get, obviously you get a job, you're making more money, then refinancing that loan makes a lot of sense. The reason I say this is because we're in a $1.7 trillion disaster in student loans in this country. And I think it's important for your audience to know, Ernie, that the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. has asked colleges and universities to initiate financial literacy programs. Many colleges and universities are struggling with that because they're deliberating what that's going to look like. What office is it coming out of? Is it a part of a curriculum? How many FTE, full-time employees? How are we going to analyze the success? All that stuff, right? Cal State San Bernardino has financial literacy. They use a platform, and it comes right out of their financial aid office. Anybody has access to it. It's a really good program. I've looked at it. Take advantage of it. Learn what financial literacy is and learn how to be responsible with your money, because the last thing I'll say on this, Ernie, is all of this comes down to default. None of your students don't default. Don't default on those loans. If you default, it hurts your credit, right? Defaulting means you don't make your monthly payments. And that's going to hurt your credit and your opportunity for, a low interest credit card, auto loan, mortgage, any of those things. And so taking advantage of financial literacy, learning what your interest rate is and refinancing after you get your MBA, after you get a job, and also thinking about consolidating of loans.
Okay. How do they get in touch with the software that you mentioned? Where do they find that?
It's on the Cal State San Bernardino's financial aid website.
Okay.
Yep.
They can just go there and use that to help them. I've noticed that many students, other than knowing they have student loans, it's unseen and unheard, and we don't think about those things. until I get the notice 6 months after I graduate. So we just, that's the dirty little secret. We don't talk about this.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, if it's not in your face, you don't think about it, and then 6 months later, you got a job, you're in your 5th month, you're spending money, you're having a good time, and then here comes this thing in an envelope saying, "Oh, you got to make your first payment for $600 this month."
By the way, yeah. By the way,
Right,
remember me?
and that's shocking, Ernie. It's going to be shocking. So I think understanding the terms of your loan, understanding the interest rate that you're paying on that loan, and realizing the importance of refinancing or consolidating your loans upon graduation, it's going to be key.
So, all
And
right,
financial literacy.
we're rounding the bin and we're headed home on this one, Raj. But I want to ask you, what would be success for you as the new executive director of the Career Center? What would you call success?
I think success is in the perception of others. I think as a leader, as someone who's been in management for a long time, it's hard for me to define success. Success is defined by your audience, how they perceive you, how they experience your programs, the people that work for you, your sense of brand, so to speak, right? But if I were to say what success is that going back to what you said earlier, a great question, jobs versus careers. I want students to have more opportunity to find meaningful careers. That would be the ultimate goal of our office. And I think increasing the opportunity for engagement with alumni, industry leaders. I was going to tell you this earlier. I think it's important for me to put a committee together of our local municipality, private sector business owners, a few of us from Cal State San Bernardino, economic development folks, and look at what are the different career paths within our general, either county or cities, and really begin to partner on that. I think we could really, there's models out there where this has worked for entrepreneurial development, but we got to think about how it works for engaging students in careers in their own backyard. For example, we're partnered now with Moreno Valley. And so they're providing us with a lot of jobs. And so we're trying to create a pipeline, but again, that pipeline should be a lot more substantive where we're actually providing them with candidates who really want that type of a career. Yeah. So we have to do a much better job.
It's kind of a two-way street. We have to communicate to the students have to communicate to the employers. I think there's plenty of opportunity in the Inland Empire. Regardless of the city. I think coming out of COVID, we're going to see a pretty sizable boom. How long it lasts, I'm not sure. Certainly not forever, but I think there's lots of opportunity. The jobs are going to be changing, of course, because that's what they do, right? We don't ride horses anymore, right? We don't do that. And cars are going to change. We've got this directive for electric vehicles. So things are changing, technology change. I think it's nothing but opportunity, especially for any graduate coming out of Cal State San Bernardino.
I totally agree. And I think that with the Innovation Center in San Bernardino that I know that you and I have talked about in the past, I think that's going to, again, partnering with local municipalities, private sector to get people in there to mentor some of these young entrepreneurs, and not just Cal State. I mean, the entrepreneurs in high schools, get these high school kids thinking about, innovation. Because, there's a book that I've been really promoting lately that I've been reading. It's called Think Again by Adam Grant. I don't know if you've read it. But
I do know Mr. Grant, yes.
Yeah, it's a great book. And it really gets me thinking at night, Ernie, to be honest with you. It's like, how do we recreate? How do we rethink how we do career development? And that's really what I'm all about. And it's going to your point. There are going to be a lot of jobs in these cities. I just see a lot of potential, but we need people working together to make that happen. Because I'll be honest with your audience, if we can create a pipeline of opportunities, first jobs, and then candidates to those jobs, and say, for example, the city of San Bernardino, what that does is it starts to create more wealth for the area. And what does creating more wealth do? It creates more jobs, more wealth, lessens the crime. And this type of stuff, that this model has worked in other cities, and it can work all over the place. But there are jobs out there, and it's just gonna start coming up. It's just gonna pop. I don't know what they're gonna look like, but it's going to happen. Well, that's why we have to be there. We have to have feet on the ground and make sure that we're working with these local municipalities and private sector.
I agree. Take advantage of the opportunity. Just expect something good and you're going to get it.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right, we are at the end of our time. I'm going to have to put a plug in it right here.
Oh,
Thank you once again for joining us on the Silvers Connection. Roger, you've been amazing. You're going to have to come back. The problem with Roger was trying to decide what to talk to Roger about because it just keeps going and going and going. And of course, the off-camera conversations are far more entertaining, but we can't do those here because this is a studio audience at G Rating. So thanks for being here. Send us a note at mba@csusb.edu, mba@csusb.edu. And until next time, this is Ernie saying thanks for being here. Bye-bye.